now available for pre-order on Kindle. Stop Simping in Cyberspace. Learn how to avoid predatory females in their virtual con games with Stop Simping in Cyberspace. Pre-order your copy of Stop Simping in Cyberspace on Kindle today. One of my viewers wanted me to take a critical analysis of Jamie Foxx's character in the movie Collateral. Now, in the movie Collateral, Jamie Foxx plays Max, a cab driver who's supposed to be driving Vincent, Tom Cruise's character, around as he's going to do these hits on people as related to a case that Jada Pinkett's character is prosecuting. And the reason why the viewer wanted me to do an analysis of this video is because as he was watching the movie and watching Max's behavior, it fit the pattern and profile for beta males that I talked about in my book, The Man Crisis. And the viewer gave me some money to go rent the Collateral movie, and after watching the movie Collateral, I can see what he was saying about the Max character being a beta male. Now, the movie starts out with the Max character getting ready to go to work in his cab, and as he's going to work, he's got this picture of this island in his car. Now, your Max character has this picture in his car because it's his ultimate goal to create a limousine service where he can make it paradise for other people. And as your Max starts driving around, he picks up Jada Pinkett's character and shows off a wealth of knowledge. And as he's showing off this wealth of knowledge, he then shows one of the first beta male traits I quickly identified, and that trait he showed was an inability to pick up on nonverbal cues, because clearly the Jada Pinkett character was connecting with him, and the Jada Pinkett character was showing interest in him, but because your Max has tunnel vision and is so caught up in where he's going, he can't see what's in front of him. And this is the one thing that winds up getting your Max into trouble, because he cannot really think critically and he cannot pick up on verbal and nonverbal cues, because as he's sitting there in the cab with Jada Pinkett and she's flirting with him, he cannot really feel the vibe and the energy between himself and Jada Pinkett's character. And that's something that many beta males never pick up on until it's too late. And that was shown when the Jada Pinkett character handed him her business card. Clearly, she wanted to connect with him as related to a relationship, but he was so caught up in his little world that he was creating that he never really picked up on the fact that she was showing interest in him. And he could have picked up your Jada Pinkett as he picked her up for a ride, but no, he goes on to the next fare because he's in his own world. And it's that next fare that leads to the Max character getting into trouble, because as he's going to pick up this next fare, what he does is he winds up picking up a whole lot of trouble. Now, another trait that your beta males have is being greedy, and your Tom Cruise's character Vincent takes advantage of your Max's greed. And the first way he does that is when he sees your Vincent passing by, and he quickly goes eagerly to go get the fare of Vincent. Now, some people will think about that and say, oh, that was just him looking to make some money. But no, it was part of the beta male greed, because a lot of times with beta males, one of the things that they are very known for is if you dangle money in front of a beta male, they will go for it. And after your Max picks up Vincent, Vincent picks up on the fact that your Max is a beta male, because your Vincent is a sociopath. And sociopaths, they can easily read people, because part of their game is manipulating and controlling people, is reading the room, reading people's body language, reading people's facial expressions, and quickly figuring out who people are so that they can go out here and take advantage of them. And your Vincent quickly starts to pick up on Max's beta energy and picks up on Max's whole beta behavior and quickly starts to formulate a plan on how to use Max as a tool. Because I believe that anybody else, Vincent wouldn't have been able to get that far with them. Because when you have regular people, they will see what this sociopath is doing and then walk away from them. But because your Max was greedy, he went to one, pick up Vincent, and then two, he then started to go and let Vincent start talking to him, and then Vincent offered a deal that appealed to Max's greed. Now, your Vincent, after he gets in the cab, what your Vincent does is he offers Max $600 to drive him around, and your Max goes along with the deal passively. He does not say no, but he doesn't say yes. And that's another trait of beta males, is they are very unassuming, and what they won't do is say a definite no or a definite yes. And it's that passivity that allows predators like your Vincent to take advantage of them. Because when your beta male is greedy and passive, he's looking to create a covert contract, and that's what Vincent used to take advantage of Max. He knew that Max wanted to make a lot of money for the night towards his dream of opening up this limousine business, and he thought that this little bit of money would help him get further ahead. So he was looking to go along with this deal and make these stops, and because he wanted to get that further ahead by bending the rules, this is how Vincent wound up getting in his head. So that's another thing that beta males happen to them, is as they're getting greedy, they look to try to create these covert contracts where they try to slip one by people, because he was trying to slip one by the cab company by making this deal with Vincent. And part of the covert contract would have been he gets to keep the $700, and then he would be able to continue going on getting his fares. But what happened was he made a deal with the devil, and that deal was a thing that wound up burning him. Now, as he drives him over to the first house to collect that fare, and that part of that $600 that he's supposed to get, I mean $700 really, because it's 6 plus 1 to get him out of there, your Vincent commits his first murder. And after he commits his first murder, that's when he starts to change the terms of the covert contract between himself and Max. And after he changes the covert contract between himself and Max, this is where he winds up really getting jammed up. Now, I talked about how your Vincent had these big dreams, and part of what really messes up Vincent is not only Tom Cruise's character Vincent, it's getting him into that covert deal, it is also what your Max did as related to his so-called dreams. Now, your Max had this big dream of owning this limo business, and as he's talking to Vincent, he's talking about how he's been working for 12 years towards this dream and how he wants to get everything right. And that's another beta male trait that these guys have, is they never finish anything. And they never finish anything because they never start anything. And they never start anything because oftentimes your beta males are too afraid to make a step. And that's the case here with your Max as related to this so-called limousine business he says he wants to start. He has all of this money saved, but he's too afraid to spend a single dollar of that money towards his dreams because he's afraid of making a mistake. He's afraid of failing, because any guy who wants to start a business, they're not going to wait 12 years to go out here and do it. No, they're going to go out here and step out on God's promises with whatever little that they have. For example, myself, when I was starting SJS Direct back in 2009, I started it with, after losing my job and still having only a little bit of savings and just picking up a brand new laptop. So I started with next to no money and still trying to get myself together. And the same thing when I published ISIS in 2002. I had my 200 of the last $600 I had from my AmeriCorps money, and I took that towards starting to publish my first book. So it's not about the money that people have that they use to go out here and start working towards their dreams. It is that they have the courage to go out here and step out and go out here and do what they want to do. They're not afraid to go out here and take the risk, because the reward is not something that's financial for them. It is all about the goal that they want to achieve. It's like myself this year when I'm doing this John Haynes comic at Death's Door. It's about me going out here and achieving one of the goals I set for myself ever since I was 9 years old. I wanted to go out here and publish my own comics, and here I am in 2021 finally getting an opportunity to go do that. And again, I don't have a full-time job right now, and I'm still struggling out here, but I'm still making an effort to go out here and do this. And this is what men go out here and do. They step out on faith, but your beta male, because he wants to do everything right and make it perfect, he will sit there for years never taking a single step towards any of the goals he says he wants to do, because he's too afraid of failure. And because he's afraid of failure, he will sit there like the Max character did for 12 straight years, driving a cab, saying he's working towards a dream and not putting a single step towards starting out and dealing with all of the process as related to a business. Because every business venture is going to have a learning curve. And I know that from working on SJS Direct from 2009 to 2014 and learning how the uploading thing to Lightning Source and Amazon was, and learning about how to get my pages laid out, and learning how to deal with issues as related to typos, and dealing with all sorts of financial costs like ordering books and then winding up getting stuck with them. That's all part of the learning curve for business, and everybody has to go out here and learn. But once you learn what not to do, and you learn to build momentum. But Max is too afraid to build any momentum because he's too afraid to fail. And because he's afraid to fail, that's why he's wandering and driving around Los Angeles in a cab for over 12 years and still looking at this picture of a paradise in his car and not building a paradise for himself. And that's the reason why his life is a complete mess, and it becomes even messier after he gets involved with Vincent, and Vincent makes him an accomplice to murder, and Vincent uses that him being an accomplice and his own cowardice as the catalyst to continue going on committing his murder spree. Because your beta male, oftentimes, again, he's driven by fear, and what your other predators do is they use the fear of the beta male to manipulate and control him. And that's what the Vincent character does throughout the movie until he reaches 2 points. Now, in one point of the movie, your Vincent goes and takes the Max character to his mother, and that's another point in the movie that really shows how beta your Max is, because your beta males, a lot of them, they have serious mother issues because they come from single mother households, and because they come from single mother households, they have a strong self-confidence issue. And we see that with the Max character in Collateral, where he's sitting there always talking about not being able to please his mother, not understanding that his mother had serious issues with his father, and is taking out those issues on him as related to her issues with his father. And one of the points in the movie that I found to be the most troubling was when Vincent buys the flowers and presents them to Max to give to his mother, is the mother dismisses Max giving him the flowers, but when Vincent says the flowers are from him, the mother starts getting happy and pleased. Now, I found that to be a little racist in the undertones because the black woman only sees value in the gift from a white man, but from a psychological standpoint, it shows how many women just don't respect beta males and how their lack of respect for a beta male, anything that they give them, they don't see as valuable. And that's a point that really starts to trigger your max because when it comes down to beta males and their mother, that's the one person you don't want to go out here and disrespect because many of these beta males, they put their mothers on pedestals and their mothers are seen as people who can do no wrong. So this is where your Vincent makes a major mistake with Max because with a beta male, the one person you don't want to go out here and trigger is things related to their mother because that's the thing that's going to get you hurt. Now, as your Vincent is interacting with the mother, Max starts to get angry and triggered, and he really starts to lose it. And that's when he takes Vincent's bag, rushes out of the hospital, and has Vincent chasing him. Now, the reason why Vincent was chasing Max wasn't because Max was trying to protect his mother. He was angry about himself being emasculated in front of his mother and losing his favorite position. Because when it comes down to beta males, one of the things that they want to be is favored and respected by their mothers, and him losing respect was a thing that started to trigger his emotions, and this is one of the reasons why he ran out of the hospital and threw Vincent's bag over the pass. And that symbolized your Max's anger at Vincent because he would have probably stayed and remained an accomplice to those murders all throughout the movie had he not gone out here and disrespected his mother. Now, after disrespecting his mother, that's when the movie takes a serious twist, and that's when things really start to show how this relationship between your Max and your Vincent really starts to show us how this sociopath and this beta male are actually two sides of the same coin. Now, you've oftentimes heard me say that the nice guy and the jerk are two sides of the exact same coin, and we start to see that with your Max and your Vincent after this whole situation at the hospital, which winds up with your Vincent's bag being thrown over the overpass. That throws all of the plans overboard, and your Vincent has to go back to the people he hired to get the remaining plans, and then he has to try to use those plans from the laptop inside of your Max's cab. So that's when everything starts to twist, and that's when we really start to see the unraveling of these two beta males from two opposite sides of the coin, and we start to see your Vincent really starting to lose control over Max, and Max starting to lose more control over himself. Now, all of this all comes to a head after insulting his mother. He then goes out here and insults his dream. Now, another part of beta males you have to understand is your beta males live in a rose-colored world, and inside of that rose-colored world, everything is distorted. And inside of Max's distorted world, he lives for this dream of this limousine business that he has never even put a single effort into. And one of the things that your Vincent does that leads to the ultimate climax of the movie is after going out here and murdering the police officer who he thought would be hope in the Asian club, is he then attacks your Max's delusions. And when it comes down to a beta male, one of the worst things you could ever do is attack their delusion, because once you attack their delusion, you will shatter their reality. And this is one of the reasons why many of your beta males will go out here and become your mass shooters, or they will go out here and participate in other extreme acts of violence, because once you shatter their rose-colored world and expose them to reality, that is the thing that makes it where they reach the point of nothing to lose. And once your Vincent then castigates Max and tells him that he's weak and that his dream is not feasible because of what he has done, how he's just too scared to go for anything. This is what triggers your Max's second break, and this is what leads to him going out here and reaching the point of nothing to lose. And that's when, instead of him going along and driving Vincent to wherever he needs to go, he starts to run off the road, and that symbolizes him running off the road of his fantasy and running into reality and realizing he has nothing to live for and nothing to lose. And what he does is he destroys the cab and destroys Vincent's goals, and he also goes out here and he destroys his own goal of having that dream of going from a cab to a limousine service because he has nothing to live for and nothing to lose. So that scene was a very powerful one when I really took a critical examination of it, because it again shows what happens when you're beta male. Once you start to shatter his whole rose-colored world and take him into reality, how he becomes an extremely dangerous individual. Now, this sociopath Vincent thought he could go out here and control your Max, but once he shattered his rose-colored reality and took him into the real world, that's when he wanted to destroy your Vincent's whole goals and hopes. He wanted to shatter everything because he got emotional. Because when you, again, attack the beta male's delusions, it winds and take him to reality. He wants to destroy everything around him. And that's what he did to the cab. And after he did this, your Vincent ran away. And your Max then runs into the police officer. And that's when we start to see a real turn with the Max character, who was a beta male. And we start to see him turn into a bit of a simp. Now, after he runs into the police officer who sees the cab and then sees the body inside of the cab from the first murder, your Max then sees on the laptop that Vincent is going after the Jada Pinkett character. And after he sees this, he then turns and puts on his cape and turns into the Captain Save-Em, and then goes to confront Vincent inside of the federal building. And after he confronts your Vincent in the federal building and then uses his knowledge of Los Angeles to elude him, they have a chase on the train, and that chase leads to an anticlimactic battle between Vincent and Max, who wind up where the point where your Vincent says to him, "I do this for a living," and the great irony is that your Vincent is dying. Now, that was a brilliant scene as I saw it, and on that train, your Vincent winds up dying, and it leads to a brilliant point earlier in the movie where he talks about somebody dying on a train and winding up being forgotten, because at the end of the movie, as your Max goes out here and saves the Jada Pinkett character, the Vincent character winds up dead and forgotten on the train. But this movie was so brilliant in its commentary about the beta male that I was floored by this movie. Now, I watched Collateral before, and it was an interesting and very compelling movie, but one of my viewers saw a lot of traits with Max that clearly were beta male traits, and clearly were a lot of the things that I identified in my book, The Man Crisis. And when I looked at not Vincent, but Max for the first time, after doing my research on The Man Crisis, I could see what the viewer was saying about your Max being this beta male, and I could see how the writers of this movie, the screenwriter, really had a good understanding of the psychology of the beta male as they were putting together this thriller. And what they were trying to show with this movie was that this beta male was somebody who could easily become just as dangerous as a sociopath if you knew how to push the right buttons. And the great irony with this movie was that Vincent thought he knew what buttons to push with a beta male because he was a sociopath and thought he knew how to read people. But what he didn't understand was with a beta male, you can think you know all of the buttons to push, but if you push the wrong ones, you will wind up having this guy explode in a rage, and once he explodes in that rage, he will wind up participating in a spectrum of violent behaviors because he will become completely out of control. And it was brilliant how the writer really just went out here and showed how the things that trigger beta males, one of them, which lit the fuse, was going after this guy's mother in the hospital, because a beta male, when it comes down to his mother, if you push the buttons on his mother, that's going to be one of the things that triggers him, and that's going to light the fuse as related to him. He will be calm and unassuming for the longest time, but if you go after this guy's mother, it's going to trigger him because he wants to be seen as the fair-headed boy in the eyes of his mother and the number one. And that was Vincent's first mistake when dealing with a beta male. The second mistake that Vincent made was attacking your Max's delusions and taking him out of his dream world and bringing him into the fantasy world. And again, your Vincent did this because he was extremely overconfident as related to Max, because he had been so used to manipulating people, and he thought that he was dealing with somebody who he could easily manipulate because he was so gullible. But he didn't understand that a beta male was a ticking time bomb, and it's not a matter of if they're going to explode, it's just a matter of when. And the third thing, after shattering his delusions, was he went after a female he was interested in. Now, in the beginning of the movie, the Jada Pinkett character was throwing him some vibes and was showing some interest. And this was another thing that triggers beta males, is when you see a woman that they like, they're going to go out of their way to fight for that female. And we saw that with him playing Captain Savin and White Knighting for the Jada Pinkett character. And once you get a beta male in that situation where they're competing for a female, it's practically game over for any sociopath, because you've triggered the sociopathic response in this beta male, and that's when they go full psycho simp on you, and you're just gonna lose. And that's what happened to Vincent here with your Max in Collateral. And again, I really want to thank the viewer for giving me the opportunity to watch this film from a critical perspective. And I'm really glad to see that this viewer is taking a lot of the knowledge I presented in the Man Crisis and applying it in the real world. And I'm glad to see that people are really looking at the information I'm presenting and quickly starting to identify these beta males and their pattern of behavior. I mean, not only is this viewer seeing this pattern, a lot more of my viewers are starting to see it, and they're starting to see this pattern with beta males, either in media or real life. And as they're seeing this pattern, they're seeing these men in crisis, identifying these men in crisis, identifying this pattern of behavior, and understanding that this is something that is very dangerous in men. But this movie is just so brilliant in its presentation of two sides of the same coin, and showing us how one side, the passive side, the Jamie Foxx character, contrasts the Vincent character, and how both of these dysfunctional males, these men in crisis, were capable of doing such harm. Because your Vincent character, he was a sociopath caught up in his own little world where it was rose-colored, and he thought he was justified in killing. And then you have your Max character, who was the other side of the same coin, who thought he was justified in living in his bland little passive world. So there really wasn't much balance between either side of those worlds, and both of them were two extremes. And they again show us how a beta male can turn into a psychopath and a sociopath. And this is what happens to them, because both of them, again, live in rose-colored realities where they don't see the picture as it is. they see the picture as they want it to be. And because they see the world as they want it to be, they go out here and participate in these extremes of behaviors. Your Vincent believing he has to destroy everything in his path, or your Max who is too scared to go out in the world and build anything. So again, this is a brilliant movie when you really take a critical look at it. And again, I really want to thank the viewer for donating to the Cash App so I could take that critical examination of this movie and show you why the Max character was a beta male, just like the one I describe in my book, The Man Crisis. And I'm really glad to see that more viewers are identifying the traits of beta males and why these men are a clear and present danger to everyone, and how these men are a part of a crisis all across this country. Now, if you want to request a video like this viewer did, you can donate to the Cash App by clicking the link in the description box. And if you want to see me make more videos like this, you can also donate to the Cash App, donate to the Patreon, or donate to the PayPal. Or if you'd like, you can pick up some of my books on the SJS Direct imprint, like The Man Crisis, Stop Simping in the Workplace, Stop Simping in Cyberspace, or some of my action-packed African-American fantasy fiction, like the ISIS series, the E-Steam series, the John Haynes series, or the books of the Spinsterella trilogy. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Coming to paperback and e-readers, E-Steam Cancel Vacation. Hell's aspiring angel takes on a social justice social media mob looking to cancel her in this all-new E-Steam series adventure. Pre-order E-Steam Cancel Vacation on Amazon.com today.